who's running for U.S. Senate in New Jersey. Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for arranging this. I'm really
Sure.
excited about talking to people throughout New Jersey.
So today we're going to be doing a virtual town hall. I've had some questions sent in to me, um, and we're going to go through some of them. And if anyone would like to join, the Zoom link is on my Twitter account, and I also posted it on my Facebook. So if anyone would like to join, they're welcome to join and ask questions. You'll be able to ask one question and one follow-up question. We don't want to hold up, and if we don't get too many more guests, you can try to join again. So, okay. So let's get started here. I'm going to give you the first question.
Oh, I thought, okay, all right. I had some things I wanted to say before.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I thought I would just repeat or introduce myself a little bit to those of you who don't know me. Again, I'm running for U.S. Senate against Senator Cory Booker and the Republican challenger, Mehta. I ran 2 years ago against Senator Menendez and received 25,150 votes, which was the highest number of votes for any alternative party candidate. And then I also had run for governor in New Jersey in 1997 as a Green, and I was Ralph Nader's vice presidential running mate for New Jersey in 1996. So I'm kind of dating myself, but it also shows that I've been around. I have experience running campaigns and running with the Greens. And I hope that throughout the next hour and a half or so, you'll find out what the Greens stand for, who the Greens are, why we're running, why we're different from the Republicans and the Democrats, why we feel there's a need for us to be out here, and especially during this time of the coronavirus, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter protests, and everything that's gripping this country. The message of grassroots democracy, ecology, peace, and social justice, the four key pillars of the Green Party, are extremely important. And so I would urge people to think about their policies and the issues in 2020, not partisan politics, not Republicans, Democrats, but voting for the person that you believe has the stance on issues that's closest to your own. We have to get out of this partisan box, and there are many ways we can do it. But I hope tonight to give you an idea of my policy positions that make me different from the Democrats and Republicans.
Okay. So before we start, I'd like to ask our Brad if you could put the Zoom link into the description box. I'm going to let everybody know we're putting the Zoom link into the description box. And if you'd like to join and ask a question, you can also find it on Facebook and Twitter. So we're going to have some questions were sent in to me. The phone number I left for people to send in questions. So we're going to take a look at one of those now.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. One question. Here's a question from actually someone I know in New Jersey who specifically sent me these questions.
Okay.
Okay. What type of legislation would you create or support relating to the safe reopening of schools? And
okay, so is that the only question you want to ask for starters?
Yeah, I'm going to start with that one.
Okay. All right. So as everybody knows, it's probably one of the biggest. This is probably one of the biggest and most controversial issues right now in this country, whether or not the schools can safely reopen in person in August. Well, we're in August now, or by early September. And it's my position as a candidate for U.S. Senate that it's too soon to do so. It's too soon to send students back into the classroom because we don't have the COVID-19 under control, and because we're putting too much responsibility on the shoulders of the children. So in terms of legislation, I think I would support any legislation that would make either laptops or other internet-based pieces of equipment available to everyone, or I just read about something that's happening to the south of us in Mexico, where academics are being posted on the television set. You know, they're channels that I guess more people, not everybody, but more people will have access to a television set than will have access to a computer. I know there are many students in New Jersey who suffer from not having the same remote access as others. So anything, it would be necessary to have legislation that levels that equalizes this so that no one would be left out of the process of remote learning. And we've already been through that for from March until June. We don't want students to fall further behind. And so that would be one thing that I would support. And the other thing I would support is just what the science already says and what most places are not experiencing, which is 7 days of having the COVID virus be under control. Because just if you think about it, imagine students going into a classroom, they all have to wear face masks, they all have to sit 6 feet apart, they all have to have some kind of protective gear around them to protect them from everyone else. And if one student gets sick, or one teacher gets sick, or a substitute teacher is sick, it just becomes is too much to try to keep the COVID virus under control. And so I should say that all public school districts, or no public school district should open until the guidelines are met.
Definitely. Now, you want to go to another question about education, or do you want me to go to another topic now?
It's up to you. You're the moderator here.
Okay. So, let's see here. Okay, here's an education question, specifically about education.
All right.
In terms of general education plans for elementary and high school students, do you support a more STEM-focused curriculum? STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. That's it.
Yes, of course, I would support a more STEM-oriented curriculum, but I would also continue to support the humanities and continue to support art and music classes, which seem to be the first classes on the chopping block when schools have to cut back. Music and art and physical education. I know some people cringe when you say that, but it's really important, I think, for students to be to have access to all of this in all school districts. No, not just in certain school districts that have the money, or all school districts should provide this kind of education, thoughtful, thought-provoking education to the students, so that they can go in whatever direction they feel strongly about, and they can be well-rounded. And I think as a country too, we often hear about having this anti-science bias, an anti-intellectual bias, and for both of those reasons, these STEM programs are very important. Very important to put a value on those academic pursuits, and those subjects and courses.
Okay. Now, I'm going to take a look at another question.
Sure. And I'd also just say, as you're looking, that this education, public education itself, needs to be valued. My opponent the Democratic Party opponent, Senator Booker, in Newark, took a lot of, closed, a lot of the public schools were closed in favor of charter schools. He moved education away from being equally accessible to all students into something that could become privatized, could be controlled by corporations. Whomever it is that who owns the charter school has control over how the children are taught. And so that's another big part of what I stand for, which is a continued emphasis on public schools and not on charter schools, and providing adequate funding for schools so that these kinds of programs that you asked about, these kinds of programs can all be funded. And I know a little bit later we might be talking about the military and our endless wars, but I'll put this in here. If you look at our federal budget and the spending priorities in the federal budget, for every dollar that we give in tax, that we pay in taxes, the federal government, U.S. Congress allocates about 57 cents of that for the military and about 6 cents on every dollar for education. And so it's no wonder that charter schools are moving, that public schools are becoming charter schools. It's no wonder that some of the subjects that you're talking about there get short shrift. And there's a way we can do it all. We just have to adequately fund public schools from elementary all the way through high school, and then tuition-free college as well, so that people can get everyone has access to equal quality education.
Definitely. Now, it's just been brought to my attention 3 people attempted to join and we were unable to admit them. So I've been made the host. Brad was unable to admit them. So if you want to try to come in again, please try to come in again. We'd love to, get your questions here. We want to get everyone a chance to talk. So if you want to try to come in again, please try. So we're going to go to another question and we'll see if these people try to come in again. So here's one about taxes.
Sure.
This one says, please discuss your platform surrounding corporate taxes / tax cuts and incentives for businesses to bring jobs to New Jersey.
Well, that might take up the entire hour and a half we have for this, but I can start. I mean, I lived in Newark for a number of years, and one part of what happened in Newark, and I know it happens in Camden and Trenton and other urban areas, is that the corporations that want to locate in cities get tax breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So a city that needs more revenue is giving a tax break to the company in order for them to set up shop. And at the same time that the city is giving a tax break to that company, the city is also providing for all the infrastructure, taking care of the roads and everything that the corporations benefit from. So first off, I would stop those tremendous tax breaks. And if you look at the history of taxation in the United States, in the 50s, corporations were paying well over 70% of their taxes were well over 70% of the federal budget. But little by little, because corporations donate money, and Democrats and Republicans alike accept that big money, corporations expect something in return. And one of the things that the corporations got in return was rolling back of their taxes, not just through tax breaks, but other legislation that would lower their taxes. So now, guess who's shouldering the burden of municipal budgets, county budgets, state budgets? I don't think you'll have to try too hard to figure that out. Working people in the middle and the lower end of the economic spectrum, we're all expected to pay for those corporations. And then if there isn't enough money at the local level to fund sanitation or ambulance services or other, guess who picks that up? The municipality says we don't have the money, we have to cut this service, and in comes private company A, B, and C, and private company A, B, and C buys this, this says we're going to provide that service, but they provide it, hospitals too, prisons, privately owned and privately run. When it's run for a profit and it's run by a private company, it doesn't necessarily rarely serves the best interests of the people. So that would be one thing. I mean, two things. I would go find a way to equalize the tax burden through some additional tax policies. One that has come up over and over again is a wealth tax. I support wealth tax on people making extremely high amounts of money. And if you do that, I remember back in the 2000s when the United States was preparing to go to war against Iraq or continuing the war on Iraq. I'm not sure which one now. To fund that war, and I don't agree with funding those wars, but a wealth tax would have provided enough money to fund that war instead of putting it again on the backs of everybody else. Better yet, stop
not have the war.
Yeah. Yes, but there's just, there's a lot of money that is sitting there in the hands of, well, let's go after Jeff Bezos, for example, and Amazon. Amazon's paying no taxes.
He's going to become the world's first trillionaire.
Yes, he is. And he's doing it, on the backs of his workers and everybody else. To me, that's not fair. To me, there's money that he's got. The city of Newark was trying to arrange for him to build a warehouse in Newark. There was opposition to that. But at the same time, they were willing to give Bezos a huge tax break to locate in Newark. They shut down a homeless shelter. The city of Newark shut down a homeless shelter. Now, to me, those priorities are all mixed up. And we need to be doing what it takes to provide for the people, not the corporations and the billionaires who run them.
Okay. We have a question from the YouTube chat right now. So I'm going to ask this one. This is from Matthew Scholar. How would Madelyn Hoffman support including youth in the political process as a U.S. Senator?
Oh, we desperately need more younger voices in our government. And in New Jersey, one of the money from big corporations and move the country in a different direction. So for me, I would work with the young eco-socialists. I would work with others that the young eco-socialists inspire to get involved. The person who's my outreach coordinator just graduated high school. He's going to college next week. Yeah, so I see it as essential to bring in the voices, the wisdom. I mean, we talk about the wisdom of the elders. There is wisdom in the youth, a lot of it, and we could all benefit from what they see, before they wind up deciding with whatever age they're going to work for X corporation because there's nothing else out there for them. So yes, Matthew, I hope I've answered your question.
I'm going to check the chat again and see if there's any more questions. And if not, I'll ask some more of the questions that were sent to me. Okay. So there are no more questions in the chat at this time. Please remember, you can send questions in the chat or you can join the Zoom meeting, through the link in the description or the link on the Facebook or the Twitter. Okay. So let me take a look at the list of questions. Here's one. Should we raise taxes on fossil fuel companies?
Well, now that's a question, because my platform says we should stop using fossil fuels. So, and I've taken a pledge not to accept any money from the fossil fuels industry. In fact, the no fossil fuels money pledge says it's okay it says I pledge to take no money in amounts over $200.
Wow.
And from coal, gas, and the fossil fuels companies, and I've said I won't take any money. I don't care if it's a $50 contribution. I'm not going to take it, because we have to stop using fossil fuels as soon as we possibly can, because of climate change, the issues of climate change that are out there. And if we tax fossil fuels companies thinking that that will answer the question, probably it won't, or address the issue, it probably won't, because fossil fuels companies will probably absorb the extra tax and pass it on to the consumer. So no, taxing the fossil fuels companies, not really the answer, because the answer is to stop using fossil fuels as soon as we can and move into renewables and other forms of energy, non-polluting renewable forms of energy, wind, solar, and the like. And so no, while in theory it sounds good, because you want to tax companies that are polluting, because they're doing something wrong, and they're creating problems for people, health problems, health issues for people. In this case, I think the best thing to do is to phase them out as quickly as possible. Stop the pipeline, stop the fracking, stop the building the power plants, all of that. Okay.
Here's a healthcare question.
Okay, good.
What type of provisions would your healthcare platform have in regards to unexpected emergencies and pandemics?
That's an excellent question too. First of all, I wonder if anybody out there feels that our healthcare or health insurance system has really addressed the issues of the pandemic in an adequate manner. For me, what I've seen and experienced is that the United States doesn't have a health insurance policy. It has a patchwork of private insurance companies just trying to make a profit from people's sickness, and so first we need to implement a national health insurance program, single payer, improved and expanded Medicare for all. We need to provide a way so that people have a backstop. They're protected. They can lean up against it when the going gets tough. I mean, how many millions of people lost their jobs, and with losing their jobs, also lost their health insurance. So we need to change that. It needs to change right away. And I am, I'm not surprised by the Republicans. I'm not surprised by the Democrats, but just recently, in the Democratic Party national DNC platform, where the DNC refused to put in national health insurance single payer. So they're not committed to it, but I am, and the Greens are. And I think many people in this country are as well. So that's the bottom line for starters. So then when there's an emergency and a pandemic, like we've just been experiencing, there's already something in place. But to help protect people who are working, we need to grant unlimited sick pay. There can't be that you have sick pay of 7 days out of a year, whatever it is, sick days of 7 days out of a year, and say you get COVID-19 or some other illness, and you're out for 7 days and then another 7 days. Shouldn't have to be concerned about losing your job or losing coverage, or saying, oh, I don't have any more sick days, I have to push myself back to work. This is capitalism working. This is the profit motive working, putting profit over people and over people's health. And I don't agree with that. I would shift it. I would shift things around. The most important thing is our people's health and safety. And that's how I would work, or prevent, or address the issue of an emergency need for healthcare, such as we've seen during this pandemic.
Okay. There are two questions here that are related to each other, so I'm going to ask you both of them.
Okay.
One says, there's three. Okay. One says, should we raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour and adjust that to inflation? One says, should we move to a universal basic income system? And another says, should we do both,
Do both, yeah.
$15 minimum wage and move to a UBI system?
Yes, both. We should do both. We should do both, and the third item, which is to ensure that there are jobs if people want them. I mean, again, I'm sure people have been following this debate over extending the unemployment benefits, the extra unemployment benefit of $600 a month. And today we learned that it's either $400, not a month, a week, either $400 a week, or I read somewhere else that it's really $300 a week, coming from an executive order that may or may not be enforceable. But the argument that's made about that by the Mitch McConnells of the world, and I would be in the Senate with him. The arguments made by the Mitch McConnells of the world people are just staying home because they make more money on unemployment with unemployment benefits than they make going to work. So there's an easy solution to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the easy solutions, anyway, is to raise the minimum, is to make sure everybody's working at the current minimum wage. I would go further than that. That $15 minimum wage was a demand that was made first about 10 years ago, 7 to 10 years ago. So by the time it's enforced, everything, when talking about cost of living and such, that's also grown. So $15 an hour now isn't adequate to address what it needs to address. So I call for a living wage, which in New Jersey would be about $22 an hour. And for a situation like the one we face right now, a universal basic income, so that instead of $1,200 in March or April, and then that's it, $1,200 for 4 months so far of a very depressed economy, people would get $2,000 a month, which would help with rent, which would help with food, which would help with car insurance, whatever, gasoline, it would help. So I support a UBI, universal basic income. I support a living wage, not a minimum wage. And I support doing them both, as well as providing more jobs. Because some people would rather work than have a universal basic income. So we need more jobs as well.
Oh, do you support the part they also ask about pegging it to inflation? Like if the inflation, because with inflation, our minimum wage $7.25, which was good at one point, it's not good now due to inflation. So part of the question was, do you support pegging it to inflation?
Yes, I do. But I would start higher.
Right. Well, of course.
Part of my answer is to start higher than 15. And from anything that I've read, I think that 22 is the minimum. $22 an hour is the minimum for a living wage right now.
Okay. Here's a nice question. I think it's hilarious the way this person worded it.
Okay. All right. Let's go for it.
Do you think it's possible to survive if we cut the military budget?
Yes.
Okay.
My answer is yes, it's possible. And yes, it's possible to go anywhere to survive. And I assume the person means from a national security standpoint,
Right.
to fend off any external threats and such.
Yes.
We could survive if we cut the military budget by 10%, 20, which is what we just The Senate just voted on it and the House of Representatives just voted on it and resoundingly defeated 10% cut in the military. But we could survive with that. We could survive with a 25% cut. We could survive with a 50% cut, and we could survive with a 75% cut. Two things we need to all remember, or three. One, even with a large cut like that, we still would spend more on the military than the 7 or 8 countries behind us in military, right behind us in military spending.
Right.
So we can afford to cut back without being, and still be the nation's number one, the world's number one spender on military. And I'm not sure that that's a badge of honor, but I mean, if people think about it, want to think about this in monetary terms, we certainly would have enough. Secondly, we're spending trillions on upgrading and quote unquote upgrading and modernizing our nuclear weapons arsenal. What the hey? It's 2020, folks. 75 years since just tomorrow is the 75th anniversary of the dropping of the bomb on Nagasaki, and the 6th was Thursday was the 75th anniversary of dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Isn't it time we move away from that? Isn't it time that we say, and if we do this, if we spend the trillions that are promised, and those were promised under President Obama, those trillions of dollars were promised in exchange for signing one more nuclear weapons control treaty. If we spend that money and do what we pledged to do, our nuclear arsenal would be bigger, more powerful than it was even at the height of the Cold War. And so we're moving exactly in the wrong direction. The direction we should be moving in is away from the use of nuclear weapons altogether. So you could take $1.7 trillion right there and put it into education and in roads and bridges and healthcare and fighting climate change and so many other things. And then the last part of that is we have to end these wars. We end these wars, and instead of using a drone bomb or another bomb or a tank or some other a cluster bomb or daisy cutter bomb, instead of doing that, we actually sit down and talk to people. We talk to people who we believe are standing in the way of whatever. We need more oil. Talk to the Iranians. Talk to the Syrians. Talk to the Saudis. Talk, negotiate. Don't think that you're going to get where you need to go by the use of a bomb. In fact, using the bombs make us all less safe, because somebody will want to retaliate. It just continues on. So yes, I love the question, and
Survive.
we will survive. The question is, will we survive if we don't cut the military budget? And let's turn that one around.
Now, actually, here's an interesting one. We actually discussed this last time we were on the show. We showed the Kyle Kalinske clip about how Bernie Sanders had that amendment to cut 10% of the military and how well that went. The 23 senators voted for it, and the 93 Congress people out of the 500 something. So here's the question.
535.
Yeah, 535. So 93 plus 23, that's 100. About 113 people out of
about 20%. We'll be generous and call it 20%, but it's
still too little. But let's see.
Way too.
Here's the question. What do you think it means that we couldn't even get Bernie Sanders' 10% military budget cut amendment through Congress?
What it means, and this is one of the main reasons I've run for political office the last two election cycles. What it means is that both Democrats and Republicans are committed to war. In fact, we just I just heard Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, yet another senator, and a Democrat, this time a Democrat, McConnell a Republican, Murphy a Democrat, complaining that Trump didn't handle the coup of Venezuela properly, that he didn't like we didn't go all the way. We did it. We had a bad strategy, and we need to do better. And this. Remember the State of the Union this year, at the beginning of this year. I think we might have spoken about this part when Juan Guaido, the person that was let's see, A, B, C, D, E. I'm gonna pick F. You're gonna be our new president of Venezuela. Just random like that. It seemed he walked into the where the State of the Union address in the Senate chambers or the legislative chambers, and everybody, Democrats and Republicans alike, stood up and gave him a standing ovation. Juan Guaido. So clearly, military spending and these military escapades, these military disasters, both Democrats and Republicans support them. Both Democrats and Republicans get money from the military contractors. Both Democrats and Republicans are not, neither Democrat nor Republican is willing to use diplomacy and negotiation. They just want to keep fueling the military industrial complex. And that's at the root of so many of not only the US problems, but problems around the world. If we want to end climate change, combat climate change, we have to stop burning up all those fossil fuels that are used during a war, a military action. If we want money for schools and healthcare and college tuition and the rest, we need the money from someplace, and that's where we get it. But I'm just going to say this last thing quickly. 2 years ago, when I ran against Senator Menendez, I was told to stop raising the issue of the military budget. I was told by people who wanted to see the Democrat win that if I kept raising the issue of the military budget, I was distracting people away from what the real issues are. And I responded by saying, but this is the issue. And you look at Joe Biden. Look at Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Compare them one to the next. Joe Biden was in support of the Iraq War. Joe Biden, he's another hawk. You think he would sign a bill that reduced the military budget? I don't think so. But we have to decide what is, as voters and as people who don't vote, but just are concerned about the direction this country is heading in. We have to look, that's what I said at the beginning. We have to look at the issues, not the party. And this issue, both parties are just about the same, except for the 18% maybe that you were talking about. That's not going to get it done. And so if we get 10 more people elected in this election cycle who think like those 113 people, that's still only 125. How are we going to push?
Passed.
What's that?
You said you're not going to get it passed.
Yes, exactly. And how are we going to move the Senate and the House, to go more to the left? Because that's what some peacemakers are saying now. Well, we have to get rid of Trump, and then we can push Joe Biden to the left. Yeah, right. We're going to be pushing for the next 50 years.
Yeah, exactly. So. Definitely agree. He would be easier to move than Trump. Trump doesn't really respond to anything, but I don't think he's going to move that far, personally.
No. Because it would, maybe if we had hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, maybe we would. And, this is part of my campaigning too. This is not just about going to a voting booth and voting for somebody. It's also about getting active, becoming active, and And there are many people who are already active, but just building that and making that stronger, that's what we need to change things.
Okay, here's an interesting one.
Okay.
Hang on one second. I just had it. Here's one. Now, this is generalizing. There are about this time there's about 9% of people in Congress who are on the right side of this issue. So I think so. That's nice. But here we go. What would you do about the unavoidable housing crisis that is upon us? Democrats want to give us lawyers. Republicans want to do nothing. Millions of people will not be able to pay their rent or mortgages. What would you push for to address this issue?
Well, for now, in the immediate, in the present, I would push for a cancellation of rents and a cancellation of mortgages and a cancellation of student debt. I'll explain how that can be, how that's related in a minute. But I'm saying cancellation, not a moratorium, because it's now 4 months of rent since March, since the lockdown. And if it's just a moratorium, it's good for now. But when the moratorium is lifted, those who owe back rent are going to be asked to produce the back rent and then the current rent. And that's just not sustainable. It just won't work.
Oh, here's a question that can go with it I just found. So let me just give that to you as well.
Sure.
They asked basically the same thing, but they added, would you put any legislation to protect the small business or small landlords who are not going to be receiving rent? They're basically saying, there are some landlords who are smaller.
Yes.
And if you'd protect them in your legislation.
Well, I think again, if people have a living wage, that's one step in the right direction. If we're still in the pandemic, then we need the universal basic income, and that's another step in the right direction. And the third, we shouldn't have people homeless either. In this country, with the amount of money that's out there, I mentioned the contrast between the wealth of Bezos and the desire for a tax break and the shutting down of a homeless shelter in Newark. One of the women who was in the homeless shelter, I was fortunate enough to interview. She said she went to college. She had multiple degrees and spoke multiple languages, but her student debt was so high that she couldn't afford rent and her student debt. So if you cancel student debt, forgive student debt, then people have extra cash. They'll have extra cash to help contribute to the rent. So you need to put more money in the hands of the tenants, and you need, housing. Housing is not. No one should be without housing, and it's about looking. It's part of socialism, or people will call it socialism, and I suppose it is, because housing is not all about profit making. So yes, for the smaller landlord, if all these other issues are addressed, and there's rent control. There has to be universal rent control, not just in certain areas of a city or in certain cities and nowhere else. There needs to be a rent control on rents so that people can continue to afford. It's better, isn't it, to have somebody who can consistently pay rent over a 10 to 20 year period than to get a high rent for a year or two and then find that the person can no longer sustain it. So things need to be reorganized and restructured to protect everybody, to protect the small landlord, to protect the tenant, to protect those who have mortgages, so that we can sustain, we can live where we can continue to live where we want to live, and not get worried about being thrown out in the streets. you know, the people of New Orleans, there could be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people evicted in this country when the pandemic is done or when the moratorium on evictions is lifted. And there are already some people being evicted, even, you know, despite the moratorium. But the people in New Orleans were going during the pandemic, face masks and all, they were going to places that were responsible for rent and for community. I don't remember exactly the government agencies they were going to, but they were going to them to say, you can't let this happen. You can't let this happen. So people need to get into the streets also and protest to help protect not just themselves, but everybody else.
Definitely. Now, the issue of housing you just raised, I've only heard 3 people in Congress actually talk about that one issue now. There
Which
should
one?
be the housing issue. You said everyone should.
Oh, okay.
There's only 3 people in Congress who's ever mentioned that. So that's very nice.
Well, and Senator Cory Booker, you know, we haven't mentioned him very often tonight, but he's the reason for this. One of the reasons for this campaign. When the CARES Act was passed back in March, the one that provided $1,200 for people, he sat there at a press conference with Governor Phil Murphy, and he said up front, this bill doesn't help everybody. It leaves out the homeless. It leaves out the undocumented. It leaves out the students. And then he just wandered into the rest of it and said, but it does all these good things. And if I were in the Senate and I were part of the negotiations, I would look Senator Booker in the eye and I'd say, well, why doesn't it address the homeless? Why doesn't it address the undocumented? Why doesn't it address students? Everyone needs to have these protections. And these are the people who get left out of everything. These were the people who were getting left out prior to the pandemic. And I just wouldn't let that happen. I wouldn't let that happen as a U.S. Senator.
So I think you think a little bit. I think we talked about this when we first came on. And I said, now the more progressive end senators are like, well, we'll get them to do it later. We'll get them to put the good stuff in later. That was Senator Sanders, Senator Warren. Like, well, we'll get it later. Yeah, but we're voting on this bill now. This is when everyone has to vote on the bill. So if you try to hold up the bill now and you say, I want A, B, and C in here, maybe you'll get A, B, and C because everybody has to vote for this bill immediately.
Well, look at, we've seen it unfold in front of our very eyes. Look, the Senate and the House are trying to pass another relief bill. Can they do it? No, they keep, they are arguing over every part in it. So yeah, we can take care of it later.
Yeah. Oh, right. There's the part they're not arguing about. They're not arguing about bailing out the lobbyists.
No. Or the military budget. Really not. They're not doing that, but they're arguing about this extra $600 a week.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's nothing. Somebody figured that out. $600 a week is $15 an hour for 8 hours a day. It's minimum wage stuff. So it's making it sound like people are stealing or walking away with a fortune instead of just getting the basic amount of money they need to survive during this time through no fault of their own. They're laid off not because of anything they did, but because governments have shut things down so that we all stay safe and healthy.
Sounds exactly like a speech we heard from Senator Sanders. He's like, oh my God, people are going to be able to get $600 a week, and they're going to be able to pay some of their bills. Oh no.
Well, it's really not funny, but yeah,
no,
I understand I do understand exactly.
And then, McConnell wasn't happy.
No, Mitch
McConnell.
No. And I just have to say, I mean, when he was eulogizing John Lewis last week, it was very hard to stomach very hard to stomach.
So was former President Bill Clinton, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, no, he was, and President Obama.
Mhm.
I mean,
Now
the
yeah,
former President Obama.
yeah.
We just have to get a grip, I think, as a country. We have to get a grip on who it is we are, what it is we're doing.
Oh, hang on. We're having someone is trying to join. If
Oh,
you,
okay,
this is Valentina Perez.
okay.
Okay. Letting you in now, Valentina. So, hi. Connecting to the audio.
Great. This
Okay.
is great. Hi,
So, thank you
Valentina.
for joining us, Valentina. You have a question? Let me unmute you. You're muted.
Can you
Uh,
unmute?
I can't unmute her. I'm trying
Uh,
unmute audio. Okay. Valentina, if you want to talk, you want to ask a question, you're gonna have to unmute your audio, and we'll be able to take your question.
or can she type it in the chat?
You could type it in the chat as well. Okay. Someone else is okay. Trying to join. So 4 people have entered the waiting room. Okay.
Oh, wow. All right, one at a time.
We're gonna take in one at a time. Valentina, if you want to wait, you're not gonna answer yet. We'll admit Jesse Gonzalez right now.
Valentina said hello. Hello, Valentina.
Oh, sorry, Jesse. If you want to wait for a second, we're gonna let Valentina go ahead.
Yeah, Valentina, do you want to type your question in?
Oh, okay. So Valentina hasn't answered us. Jesse, you want to go ahead? And she's typing something in the chat.
Okay.
She
Okay.
says, "Hello, people."
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a question? My microphone doesn't work. I'm going to listen. Okay, sure. You can stay in here and listen if you like. Jessica, would you like to ask us a question? Ask Madelyn Hoffman a question? Not getting an answer. Okay, here's someone.
He's muted too.
Okay, let's admit iPhone.
Hi, iPhone.
Oh, hello, iPhone.
Jessica's gone for now.
Okay. iPhone. Hello. You're muted. You'd like to unmute your audio and you'd like to ask us. Oh, okay then. Okay, I'm going to have to. We're not here for you to sing, so I'm gonna have to remove you from the group. I'm very sorry.
Okay, it's funny.
Okay,
It might have
let's
been
try.
a topical song for all we know.
Yeah.
But
Benito Camila. Let's see what they have to say.
Benito, okay. I do have. Let's see what they're going to ask me. Hola.
Okay, he's connecting to his audio. Okay.
Right. It's fun. It's an adventure. An adventure.
While you're waiting, well, let's invite iPhone something or other. Hello, iPhone. Hello, iPhone. Would you like to ask us a question? Ask a question?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, great. Great, great.
We got you. We hear you too.
Okay. Do you have a question for Madelyn Hoffman?
Hon heter Anna, Anna heter hon. Hon kan banna det så hårt.
That's very nice. Okay. So we have 5 more people waiting.
Oh, okay. We have to make sure they have questions, I think.
Yes. This is okay, so we're admitting
Laura.
Okay. Hello, Laura. Would you like to ask a question?
She's muted too, and Benito can't connect.
Okay, gonna start purging the chat in a minute. There's 8 more people waiting. Hopefully someone has a question.
Gosh, 8. Laura, do you have a question for me? I'm running for U.S. Senate with the Green Party of New Jersey. Looks like she may not know. She just asks what.
Okay. Okay, Laura, if you have a question, you may go ahead. I'm going to admit iPhone 7.
That's probably, I wonder if it's the same iPhone guy.
No, once you're removed, you can't rejoin.
Okay.
Okay, this Benito Camila is unable to connect to their audio. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to remove you. I don't have the internet to keep all these people in here. I'm sorry. Okay. So
Yeah.
iPhone 7. Do you have a question for Madelyn Hoffman? Okay.
I think not.
Um. That's very nice, but we're not here for that. So unless you have a question, we're gonna have to remove you. Okay, thank you. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to be flagged for copyright. So we're gonna try iPhone 8, and we're here to answer. Madelyn Hoffman's here to answer serious questions. So please don't play music and get my channel copyright strike. Thank you. Okay. iPhone 7. Do you have a question? Still waiting in the chat. Okay. Neo. Okay. Oh, here's someone I actually know who I'll let in who probably does have a question. Oh, okay. They left. Okay. Someone I knew was here that would actually ask a question and they leave. That's nice.
iPhone 7 is muted. iPhone 8 is muted.
Okay, iPhone 8 will be. I'm sorry, iPhone 8. I'm gonna have to leave from the chat. And iPhone 7.
iPhone 7, do you have a question? They typed in the chat anyway.
Hello, hello, hello. Oh, that's nice. You're spamming the chat. Goodbye. I was hoping some people would have some serious questions.
Well, a lot of people did send them in to you before, so
right.
A
well,
lot
that's
of
nice.
questions at least, right? That was interesting.
That was very interesting.
Entertaining, but not very informative. If people want to find out more about my campaign, they can visit my website at hoffmanforsenate.com. That's www.hoffmanforsenate.com. If people want to donate to my campaign, based on what you've heard so far, you can go to that same website, hoffmanforsenate.com/donate. That's hoffmanforsenate.com/donate. And if you want to volunteer for this campaign, because the time is really, there's so many people who are angry, so many people who are distraught, so many people who are in need of assistance or relief. You know, there are mutual aid organizations springing up everywhere to help. It's called economic solidarity. You know, if you want to volunteer and be part of this between now and November, you can go to my website, hoffmanforsenate.com/volunteer. So you can also just go to my website and see my platform, see actions you can take to get us out of this mess.
Oh.
No.
No, it can't be.
Can't be the real Jesse Ventura.
That would be fun.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, might get some. Yeah.
Yes, it says yes. Well, Jesse, do you have a question?
Yes, Jesse, do you have a question for?
It says yes.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm ready. One moment. Oh, one moment, please.
Oh, no.
And so we're probably going to get a video clip of Jesse.
If Jesse, if you'd like to give you a minute to get your Jesse Ventura voice changer, that's okay.
Oh, man. Maybe.
That would have been interesting, though, if it actually was.
Well, let's see what happens. He's still there and he's not muted. But let's, so no, I mean, it's really important that because this is serious stuff. And if people want to learn more about it and connect to the campaign, that my website is the place to go. www.hoffmanforsenate, all lowercase, hoffmanforsenate.com. Okay, so here we go. Here's the question.
I'm wondering what kind of policies you're hoping for in the next president of the United States in terms of the environment and in terms of the environment and energy efficiency.
All right, well, that's an excellent question. I think that first of all, we have to put a ban on fossil fuels, on the use of fossil fuels, and the continuation of fracking and the building of pipelines. And I don't know. Some of you watching and listening may remember. Right after 9/11, the Congress tried to pass a bill that set a minimum fuel efficiency standard for the cars. I think it was like 30 miles per hour or 30 miles per gallon. And the US Congress rejected that, would not put that in place. If we set a minimum standard for fuel efficiency and we're using fossil fuels, at least we're putting a limit on the level of emissions, but we're still using and depending on fossil fuels. One of my colleagues has had a hybrid for a number of years now, part electricity, part gas. He's going to move completely to electric. He's going to go completely to an electric car. So we need to move away from the fossil fuels as much as we can. We also need to do more with public transportation. We've certainly seen that during the pandemic. People who need to get to work and don't have access to a vehicle need to be able to get to work. And then as far as the environment and climate change, both of those policy changes, more money for public transit, more money for and electric cars, electric vehicles, and to the military. Much of the military's activities will address the issue of climate change, and we have to go to renewable energy. We have to get away from burning it up in coal or gas. We have to. All the scientists say we have 10 more years, maybe. And from everything that I've heard, here we go, the Green New Deal, everything that I've heard, even if Joe Biden supports some of it, he's saying we're going to do clean energy by 2050. We don't have till 2050.
Oh, no. Now he says by 2035.
2035. Okay, we may not even have to 2035. But if it's not coupled with big cuts to the military, and if it's not accompanied by a ban on these projects, I mean, we've had to fight this here in New Jersey. We've had to, Governor Phil Murphy, he ran against a Green named Seth Copperdale for governor, and Seth Copperdale was putting forward a Green New Deal that asked for 100%. Well, I don't remember his exact percentages and by when, but Murphy said the same. He would do something similar, and since he's been in power, it's taken massive amounts of grassroots action at the local level to prevent the permitting of some huge power plants. And there's another one coming up, another permit coming up. And I don't have all the details, but if you email me at Hoffman for US Senate at gmail.com, Hoffman for US Senate, all lowercase, all together, at gmail.com, I can send you the link to the latest petition to stop the permit for another polluting fossil fuels facility in New Jersey. We can't reduce and go to clean renewable energy if we continue to fund the old polluting fossil fuels.
We have someone named Vantage HGC waiting to enter the chat. I think I know them. I think they're here for something else, but let's see what they're here for.
All right.
Hello, Vantage. Do you have a question for Madelyn Hoffman?
Okay.
Yes? Okay. What's your question?
What are your views on modern communism and fascism?
Okay. That's a very interesting question.
Yes, it is. By modern communism, I'm not sure I know what you mean. You'd have to tell me what countries you're looking at. I will say that I disagree with U.S. efforts to overthrow Maduro in Venezuela. Ever since Hugo Chavez won in Venezuela, the United States has been trying to move Venezuela off of socialism because that, nationalizing the oil industry, nationalizing other industry hurts the United States private corporations that want to make a profit off of everything, even resources that aren't here in this country, resources that they would have to get from another country. So I know I object to the United States doing that. Trying to overthrow Maduro in Venezuela. I object to the United States sanctioning countries like Nicaragua, like Cuba, because the United States feels threatened economically by those countries. Not threatened militarily, but threatened economically, because there are some people still in this world, like Mossadegh in Iran in 1952 or 53, who had the audacity to think if they had oil in their country, that the people of their country should profit from it, that it should be nationalized, and the profits from the sale of that oil should be kept within that country. So whether I agree or disagree with any particular government and the way it's run, the U.S. has no business interfering through economic warfare in the form of sanctions or through the attempt at a military overthrow. And then it's fascism. I'm against fascism, but again, we need to define what that is. There are a lot of people who are saying that the United States is now being run by a fascist, and we have fascist policies, and there's some fascist elements, and there's some concern that it would become worse. But from what voting for the Democratic Party option of Joe Biden is not going to stem that tide. It might be changed a little bit. But nobody wants to live under a fascist government. And so we have to work like crazy. And that's why as Greens, we're so determined to continue to run our campaigns, because we believe in something different. We believe in something different than the Democrats and Republicans. And it's important for us to get that message out and provide that opportunity for others who, if you saw the people who came out in support of Bernie Sanders in 2016 and again in 2020, young people who are not afraid of words like socialism and communism, are not afraid about income, an income distribution that's more equal, and people having healthcare as a right, not a privilege, people having housing as a right, not a privilege, people having access to education as a right, not a privilege. There are many people in this country who are crying out for that now. And that's where the Green Party comes in.
So take a look at another question that was sent in to me before. Hmm. Let's see.
Eco-socialism. Here we go.
Eco-socialism. Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's what we stand for in the Green Party.
Do you believe we need now? I always like to bring this up. There's a poll that says 97% of Americans agree with this, but McConnell held it up in the Senate. So I'm gonna just put that fact out there before we do this. And they did pass it in the House, so credit where credit is due. But McConnell doesn't want to bring it up for a vote in the Senate. So here's the question: do you believe we need universal background checks on people trying to purchase guns?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
simple.
That's but we need more than that. We need more than just something that would prevent guns from getting into the hands of whomever, because that's also a hard line. You know, who's entitled, who is able to have a gun and who isn't. We need to do that, but addressing the issue of guns is much more than that. And addressing the issues of guns deals with the same issues we've been talking about. It deals with addressing the issue of poverty. It deals with addressing the issue of education, and creating more income equality amongst people in different neighborhoods. It means dealing with the concerns of Black Lives Matter. It means defunding the police. It means creating a society where the answer to every question is not solved at the end of a gun. Defunding the police and demilitarizing the police is like defunding and demilitarizing the US economy, which we've talked about that a lot this evening. So yes, I support universal background checks, but I also say that's not enough. I also say that we need to address root causes of poverty, inequality, and violence. And one place to do that is by defunding the police.
We have someone named the Motorola Rotary Dial-Up Smartphone trying to join.
Rotary Dial-Up Smartphone. Okay.
Yes. A Motorola Rotary Dial-Up.
Yes, so that's a modern one. We're not going to have somebody going like this.
So, hi.
Hi.
Do you have a question for Madelyn Hoffman? Okay. Go ahead.
I'm ready. That's a good question. There was an interesting meme circulating yesterday. Oh, the current two front runners in the presidential race. I support neither one of them. Okay. I could never vote for Donald
Trump.
Trump.
Antrax is joining as well, so
okay.
I can ask a question next.
Okay, and I cannot vote for Joe Biden. I did not vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I did not vote for her because of some of the key issues that I believe in. One is ending the endless war, stopping the endless wars, and spending billions of dollars, 740 billion to be exact, in 2020, and maybe, trillion if we add everything that's not included in the budget itself. So if a candidate supports both of those, I can't vote for them. And so Hillary Clinton supported it and continues to. Joe Biden supported it, continues to. I cannot vote for him. I obviously, with what I believe about social justice and grassroots democracy and the like, I could not support Donald Trump either. I support something totally different from those two. That's not dictated by the presence of big money in the race. That's not beholden to the big donors in the party, the pharmaceutical companies, the military contractors, the chemical companies. I could go on naming companies whose money. Talk about intervention in elections. I love how it's always foreign intervention in our elections, not corporate intervention in our elections, not the Democratic Party elites in the DNC and their intervention in our elections, such that Bernie Sanders is, riding off into the sunset here. I don't support that. So I can't support either one of those candidates. I can't. And to add to it, we need to change the way our elections are conducted, because as long as the winner takes all, as long as the electoral college governs who wins, we're not going to get out of this two-party box. We're not going to get out of this situation where, and I know this, I have friends, I know what they want to see in this world. And they know that Joe Biden isn't going to give that, doesn't support that. But they can't vote, they're going to vote for him because of the two-party system or the winner takes all. They're afraid to not vote for whom they see as the lesser of two evils. Sometimes it's hard to tell who's the lesser of two evils on some of these matters. We need ranked choice voting, where we can go into the voting booth and say, my number one choice is a Green, or my number one choice is a Libertarian. My number one choice is Madelyn Hoffman, Joe Jorgensen, whoever it is. And then my second choice is whomever. So we get to see as a country how much support there is for the third parties, the alternative parties. Everything, all the laws are stacked against us. And despite that, I got 25,150 votes 2 years ago. We can still do it, but we need to open things up so people don't feel trapped in the box of voting for the lesser of two evils. I won't do it anymore. I can't do it. And so I think, if you look at the quality of the candidates in the Democratic and Republican parties, going back to 1996 when I ran with Ralph Nader, you would probably have to agree that the quality has gotten lesser and lesser. 20 years after I ran with Nader, our choices were Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I rest my case.
Right. Oh, have you seen Biden's new slogan? Settle for Biden.
Oh yes, settle for. I mean, the slogan for Howie Hawkins, the slogan for Howie Hawkins, who's the Green Party candidate for president, is never settle.
Yeah,
Never settle. And he came up with that long before I'm settling for Joe Biden.
I mean, what can you say about Biden? Now, any of the other candidates, well, maybe besides Bloomberg, wouldn't have had to put that as their thing. But Biden is so, corporate, so establishment. That's the only slogan they could come up with. It should have been settled for Clinton, actually, last time.
Well, I mean, really, I'm not coming down hard on people who vote for Biden or who voted for Hillary Clinton. But I think at some point people need to realize what they're actually voting for and take a chance, get brave and vote for an alternative. I see Brad has a question. Somebody?
Oh, no, Brad is the tech guy. He says we have 10 minutes.
Then it says, can I get a question in?
Oh, yeah, Brad, you can get a question. Go ahead.
Sure. The Electoral College is a throwback to the days of slavery in this country. It goes way, way back to the Southern plantation owners who owned people as slaves, and the representation in the House of Representatives was based on how many people were in your district or in your state. At the same time, you had to pay taxes for people in the state. So the plantation owners got, if you all remember, any of you remember your history, there was a 3/5 compromise, all right, that counted the people who were enslaved as 3/5 of a person, which meant that in terms of representation in the House, people would get more, the plantation owners would get more representation. But in terms of being assessed a tax, they'd have to pay a fraction of what they would if each enslaved person was counted as one whole person. So the Electoral College itself, there are a lot of people who are who've called for it to be eliminated. Now, if you want to talk about, again, the candidates who win, it was not just Donald Trump. There, have been a number of others in the last 20 years who have not really gotten 50% or more of the popular vote, because the Electoral College divides things up based on, again, the winner take all. When I teach political science, and I go through some of this. So and it's also based on voter participation. The voter participation rate is 55%, for example, and the votes get cast. Let's say it's a really close race. 28% go to one, and 27% go to the other candidate. But the Electoral College is divided up. All of the electoral votes go to whomever won in these particular states. Many of our past presidents have won with only 27, 28, 33% of those eligible to vote actually voting for them, which means that the vast majority of people either didn't vote or voted for somebody else. This so-called representative democracy that we live in is not acting as such. And so if you can go and target, and this is what Donald Trump seemed to do, he targeted swing states, and he, the total number of votes that he won by in those swing states was 70,000 votes or 80,000 votes. That's what swung the election to him. I want to see, to me, it's not just about when a Republican wins that way. It's about when anybody wins that way, Republican or Democrat. Either Republican or Democrat winning that way is wrong, in my opinion. So, and if we went to ranked choice voting or proportional representation, then the candidates would have to campaign everywhere and work to earn every vote, and not just the ones in certain limited population and constituencies in certain swing states. They would need to campaign and appeal to everyone. And as far as I'm concerned, as a Green, we could win this thing. We could win an election if all the people who have been disillusioned from the voting process actually went out and voted. There are more independent voters in New Jersey, for example, than there are the other two political parties. So we don't need to take a single vote from anybody. And nobody's owed a vote anyway. Everybody should, all candidates should have to earn their votes. And so those are a couple of basic things we can do to make it more necessary for candidates to earn every vote, and not just a small segment of the population.
Brad, did that answer your question? Okay, so we're at the 2-minute mark. Do you want to give out where people could find you?
Yes, once again, I'll do that again. Its website is hoffmanforsenate.com, www.hoffmanforsenate.com. If people want to donate to my campaign, and we don't take big donations, but we need money just like everybody else. You can go to hoffmanforsenate.com/donate. If you want to volunteer for this campaign, to help get this message out, to talk to your neighbors, to talk to people in your county, you can go to hoffmanforsenate.com/volunteer. If you want to learn more about my platform position, media, my background, just go to my hoffmanforsenate.com website and click on any of those tabs. And you can find me on Facebook, Hoffman for Senate 2020, Hoffman for Senate 2020, or you can simply email me at hoffmanforsenate@gmail.com. And Hoffman for Senate, it's all lowercase. Oh, and in all of these cases, it's the word for FOR, not the number, hoffmanforsenate@gmail.com.
Okay. Now, I know we're over time, but since this guy just died, there was a question about John Lewis in here. I want to just get to that because, yeah, he recently died, so I want to get to that really quickly. This is, do you support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act?
I do. I support any initiative that will increase participation in voting. And grassroots democracy is one of our 4 key pillars as a Green Party. And also, I remember again as a professor, adjunct professor of political science, being surprised that the Voting Rights Act passed in 1965 was actually had a limit of only 40 years to it. If you want to make voting equal and you want to monitor places that were doing things like putting in literacy tests and asking for poll taxes and that kind of thing, if you want to prevent the modern day equivalent of that, you don't have a bill that expires in 40 years. So the provisions that were in John Lewis's Voting Act would address that, would continue to monitor places that had been suspected of being unfair, utilizing unfair voting practices, and I fully support that.
Okay, so we got most of the questions out of the way. There were about 9 or 10 questions that I was sent that we missed, unfortunately.
I can answer them for you if you know who sent in the question. You can tell me which ones I missed. I can write down, 1 or 2 sentence, 3 sentence answers, and you can email them to the people who asked them. Or that might be better than asking somebody to email me with that question.
Well, sure. I'll text. Well, they texted them, so I'll text them back. Yeah, because I extra phone here. They texted this phone, and so all right. So anyone who didn't get their questions answered, I'll have them. I'll send them. Well, I'll give them to Madelyn Hoffman, and she'll be able to give you an answer whenever she can, and I'll send them back to you.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Glad to do it.
Okay. So thank you for joining us again.
Well, it's my pleasure. Anytime. Anytime.
Okay. Great.
Even the music. That was